from various and sundry places all over these United States. We have with us, raise your hand as I mention your name, Aaron Kallenberg, right there next to the really cool 59 junior car there, 59 Plymouth. Lee Exline, there he is, building his house. No, I asked him before. It's not his garage for his many junior cars. No, it's just a house. And he's from Iowa. Brian Orr is with us. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us in Missouri, excuse me.
Missouri.
Jim Stankowski is there. Thank you for joining us. And this is another edition, of course, of the Talking About Cars podcast. I'm Randy Cardew, and that's Hot Rod Bob Beck. This is something we've nearly never done before, but all of us have grown up to a certain point, and maybe you have too, of wanting, when you're like somewhere between 4 and 6 years old or 8 years old or even older, you wanted a car just like mom or dad had, and you wanted to drive that car. You wanted to know what it's like. Well, even as far back as this thing here, which had to be 58, 57, they actually had junior cars, is what they called them, not necessarily kiddie cars. That was something else. They weren't pedal cars per se, but they did have a lot of ways to get the vehicle going. And these guys know an awful lot about it. So let's bring it up right now and talk about kiddie cars. Aaron, let me start with you. How long have you had these, and how did you find out about that these vehicles existed?
Wow. I remember the story. The very first powered car I had was a Marx 1918 Stutz, and I still have that toy. But when I first learned about these, my dad had a bunch of Plymouth Merchandiser magazines from the 50s, and it was like a newspaper, I guess, an internal Chrysler newspaper, and they had clay models showing the 58 Fury Junior being made, the buck to make these bodies. And then I went to a car auction at the Ambassador Hotel. I think I was about 10 or 12 years old. And there was I remember there was a red 59 Plymouth Fury Junior sitting on the floor of his barn. And next to it was a full-size 59 Plymouth Sport Fury two-door hardtop. And the Junior sold for more than the real car. Wow. And I thought, wow, this is really something. And I tried to get my dad, at the time, to bid for it, and he said, this is just, it's insane. It was really too much to ask my dad to buy a toy that cost more than a real car. So wow. I never forgot about them, and I always wanted to find one. And Lee Exline had a great website that's now run by Brian, jrcentral.com, and I contacted Lee and I said, hey, I'm looking for a Fury Junior. And a day later he gives me a call. I just had a guy call me and he says he's got a Fury Junior he wants to sell and you want it. And so he put us together, and Lee and I have been friends really ever since.
Long time.
And, yeah, it's been at 12, 13, 14, 15 years. Max was 2, so 16 years.
Wow.
And the first one I purchased was the 59, and then I knew I wanted to get the complete set. Of course, you have to have the whole set. So I found a 60 back east and bought that, and it's mostly original. And then I found the 58 through the website.
Look at the detail behind you, though. Those cars are just so right on. Look at that.
Yeah, they're really fantastic. They have decals for the gauges, and all of the trim is very accurate. And even the seat is upholstered like a 59 Plymouth Sport Fury seat would have been upholstered.
So the one in the background, is that yours?
This one, the one behind me, is mine.
Lee, tell me a little bit about your background and your history and getting this group together and starting this website.
Well, I had a 1957 DeSoto Adventure convertible that I picked up down in southern Iowa. And I knew that the 58 DeSoto Firemites existed, and I'd been looking for one for quite some time. It took me 20 years to find one of them. They are not easy to find at all. In the meantime, I started putting together a website. It was originally hosted on another web page of mine, just as a single page. And it just started growing and growing and growing as I started listing more manufacturers and researching information. I actually talked to George Ford, the guy that ran the car company, that was the major manufacturer in the industry of this type of vehicle. And while I was searching for my DeSoto Firemite, I got offered a 1967 Mustang Junior gas powered out of Detroit. And I said, oh, what the heck? I went and bought it, picked it up, and then I found the problem. Problem was, no parts were available to restore it. So couldn't buy them anywhere, couldn't find them. Nothing was out there. So I started making my own parts. Started with making taillights, hubcaps, steering wheel, windshields. And then as I started making those parts, I found other people that needed the same parts. And I started producing for them. And then I get into a little bit more. And then all of a sudden I get on my old web page, somebody posted on there that they were looking for parts. They were in Connecticut and had some of the old molds from the company. So I immediately deleted the listing and took about a 2-year process to deal with the Schreiner group that had some of the old power car molds, the original factory molds, 57 Thunderbird, 58 through 60 Thunderbird, 65, 66 Mustang, 67 Mustang, and there was a Thunderbird in there. But I made the deal finally to work with the Schreiner group there in Connecticut, went out and purchased them. So then I was able to provide body parts. And that just kept growing and growing as more people would come to the website and more people had cars that they had need for. And I would ask this person over here, can I borrow your piece to make a mold from so I can produce the parts to sell them? And I usually work out a trade deal. You need a steering wheel? I need a mold off of that taillight lens for the 58 Mercury. They'd send me a good one that they had. I'd make a mold, send them their taillights, send them their steering wheel. Now I was able to produce the taillights for that other vehicle. And it just growed and growed and growed over the years, and more, found out more all the time. And anytime you have a website out there like that, any pure item like this, you're going to be getting the references for anything that shows up out there. So it's great on the website. Brian can tell you that. And the only problem is now he just can't resist buying more and more and more.
But I have that disease too.
Yes, you can't quit at just one. But it just built and built and built over the years. And I'm a bit of an automotive archaeologist. I love to research stuff. So I just continued to add and add and add and add on to it. And eventually I got to the point I wanted to retire out of it and got involved in corporate stuff and just didn't have the time to do that anymore. So sold the company off to Brian because he agreed to continue to producing parts. And that was very important to me, that somebody continue to supply the industry. So he's got my collection of old literature, which literature is extremely hard to find on these things. And I think Jim can tell you he's got a fairly good literature collection, but of course his dad was a major operator at the company. So
I think mine might be complete, my literature collection.
Power car company. Yeah. And that's difficult to do. The literature on these things are very difficult to do. You never know what might show up. I got an email one time that somebody had found a body mold for a Jaguar XK120. I didn't even know they made such a thing, but it was made by the American Junior Company in Seattle, Washington. The guy found the mold at a garage sale for $50. So I offered him $500, including shipping, to send it to me. And it is a beautiful mold made in about 1952 and produces beautiful XK120 bodies. Brian's got that one also.
Wow. So Jim, tell me a little bit about your history with this. And it goes back through your dad, they were saying?
Yeah. My father, they were working when they started out with the Power Car Company and Mystic River before that over in New London, Connecticut. I was born in 48. I got involved about 51 and 52. I was pretty young, but I was the right size for the Popular Science 1952 issue for the cover with the Power Car Junior on it. And I still have one of those as well as the trailer. And they look a little bit like the bulldozer, just without the shovels and all that stuff. But that's what the Power Car Junior looks like. So I was involved because, again, I was the right size. I'm in all that original literature. And I have copies of all that stuff too from back in those days. But then as things progressed and they got involved in the Thunderbirds, again, I was still kind of the right size. So on Saturday mornings, I'd go in with my father to a power car company, and I'd test drive stuff around the plant. And we started with electric stuff, and then got into the gas stuff, and then we could modify the gas a little bit, the control that held the speed down, and governor, and we could go about 15 miles an hour with that thing back and forth up and down the main drag going into the power car company, Willow Street. They also got involved with boats. They built a little, like a catamaran thing called the Go, and they also did rowboats for a while.
And surfboards, see-through surfboards. I had the original.
And a see-through surfboard, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
That stuff is all very rare.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd find any of it today.
Brian, talk about how you got involved and first discovered the junior cars, and how that led to you eventually taking over the power car company.
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of Mustangs my whole life, and had a 66 convertible since I was 16. That was my great uncle's. He had it since it was new, and it was probably about 8-9 years ago, just cruising on the web, found a picture of a red convertible with a junior and a pedal car. And I knew about the pedal cars, but had never seen the juniors and didn't know what it was. And I just saw this and thought, well, I've never seen that in all these years. So started searching, and I came across Lee's, I can't remember if it was the web page or the Facebook page first, and reached out to him and start learning more from the web page and how rare they are. And it was a few months later, happened to find one on his page list for sale. That was a guy in Ohio, but he had just moved to Orlando. And so I agreed to buy it and went to that U-Ship website and found someone that was down at Disney World that lived the town south of us. And he brought it back to me for $300. And I had my first junior. And then 1 became 2, and then 2 became 4. And after 4, it was about time Lee had decided to leave the big city and move out, and bought the company from him. And so we actually bought it on 4/17, which is, National Mustang Day, and a couple of years back. And so just kind of start taking it over. My kids help sometimes on doing parts and things, but there was 4, and now there's a whole bunch of them. So bad thing is the site, you do get the people wanting to sell them. Most of them are up in the Northeast or in the North. So, from kind of Michigan over, but a bunch of them made their way to Oklahoma, and I've picked up those because they're a short drive from me. And so just got a little shop set up. I do sub out the fiberglass and metalwork, but I make the small parts. And it's been kind of interesting because the people you get to talk to on this, just like you gentlemen here, and I've talked to people in New Zealand and Finland and Australia and just all over. And actually one guy in Australia named Mustang Bob, I ended up buying fiberglass molds for a 67, 68 Mustang pedal car, which you just don't see because they're made in the Philippines, and not many were made it to the US. There's only a couple original ones known to exist. And so now we're starting to recreate those bodies to make them available for people. And, the pedal car, you may have a little bit more of a collectors there because they're, smaller. They don't take as much room. And everybody has the 64.56 pedal car, but nobody had the 67.8. But the juniors are cool. We make several bodies. We bought out a bunch of molds from another individual down DS Pedal Cars. He's kind of getting out of the parts business, so we've added a 63 Corvette mold, which is the Lee, what's the brand? It slipped my name in a second.
Barry Toycraft.
Barry Toycraft. So we got that. The bumper molds were tossed out, so we're trying to locate a set of bumpers to make some molds on. But so that's another one that's going to survive and be out there. and he had some specialty molds as well. So for me, it's just a hobby. It's not about investment. It's probably not a good investment. Although if you see the prices some of these things are bringing on the auction sites, that may be inaccurate, but it's kind of cool making the parts. I've got them in my garage, in my barn, in the shop. They're just taking over the house here.
Throw me some money numbers. Well, how much are these things making?
So I mean, just recently, you've had a 55, 56 T-Bird, which there's about 5,000 T-Birds made. About half of them are the 55, 56. You know, those used to be 2,500 to 3,000 for really nice ones. And they came up often because they were so often made. After COVID, collectibles, everything jumped. One sold on Bring Your Trailer for 8,500, which still blew my mind. There was some selling in the mid-teens for some of the Plymouths. 67 Mustang just brought 10,100 on Bring a Trailer. So now these ones, the Mustang was an original, one owner, had been repainted, you know, was pretty close to new. But some of the rare ones, I mean, you can get in the mid-teens pretty quick. There are some out there that you can find for way less that need to be restored. But you know, what the Bullet Bird, what's the 1 year lead? 62, is that the one you've never seen?
62 have never seen one. 61
You
have
know.
seen them. 63 have seen them. Never seen a 62. Now
Yeah, we know they made
tell
the
us,
62.
Did they ever make a 62, Jim?
Yeah, I've actually I saw one many years back up near Boston. It was one at an auction. I think it had been through a saltwater flood. It was a mess, very rusty, a red one. And I got outbid by a lawyer from Boston. And it was so rough that I think I stopped somewhere around 3,500. And he just kept going. And that I never saw that car again or never heard anything more about it.
The market, basically, you got two things going with this market. Number one, most people don't know they exist. They're familiar with pedal cars, but they don't know these things exist. They're the great white ghost. I sold my original 67 Mustang Junior gas powered to a guy that had been one of the directors of the Mustang Club since back in the 70s and had never seen one. They're extremely rare. But that does two things for them. Number one, when you find one available, you better buy it because the chance of you finding another one's pretty damn limited. But if you don't know that they exist, you can't desire them. So getting the word out about these things is where the big problem is, and getting people aware that they were made. Not only were they made with the cooperation of the manufacturers. The Power Car Company being the primary one, dealt with a couple different companies. They dealt with Chrysler Corporation with the Plymouths, and they also did the Fords with the Thunderbird Juniors, the Mustang Juniors, and the Mercury Juniors.
Mm-hmm.
So multiple manufacturers. Now Bob's background, I just see he changed that over to the 58 DeSoto Firemite. That sucker's 7 foot long, has the Briggs 6B in the trunk of it, opening trunk. Very, very rare, rarely come up. If they do come up, they usually trade in private hands and you don't know what they go for. If one ever hit the auction market, I'd have to say it'd go over 20,000.
Wow.
Yeah, there's the people that are buying these things got deep pockets, usually. They got deep pockets or got damn lucky. Okay. Same thing goes for when they were new. They were used for a lot of promotions for different companies. Whether it be for chip companies, drink companies, etc., that had these as promotions where you could enter the drawing and potentially win it. The dealerships, of course, use them where you'd come in, they'd go down to the local grade school with one in the back of a pickup truck, hand out tickets for a free test drive to all the kids. Then they'd go home and just bug the hell out of mom and dad to come down to the dealership and wait in line to take a drive in this little junior car. Well, of course, what was happening while that was going on? The salesman was hitting on mom and dad. And then in the end, the salesman was so nice. He handed you this little piece of paper where you gave him your name, phone number, address, what kind of car you're driving now, because you wanted to enter that drawing. That gave that salesman an opportunity to call your mom and dad for years to come. So it was an absolutely killer sales tool. And it brought in a lot of people. And some people want them in drawings. Some people purchased them outright. A number of them, Power Car Company did sell them outright. Shriners used them. Different drink companies used them. They were used for kids' shoes. I've seen them used for chip company promotions. Heck, I've even seen them used for people that were building homes, track homes, as a promotional product.
Yeah, we have one that's on the bin for sale for a while. I'm surprised it hadn't sold. Little girl won it for the Red Ball Shoe Company, 56 or 55, 56 T-Bird. Still got the logo on there. It's like a little flying jet and Red Ball. And she's wanting to sell with the money to go to a kids charity there in town. Runs, but it hasn't sold. Kind of surprising, but maybe people want to restore one. And that's one you'd have a hard time restoring with the background. And we even have a picture of her getting awarded it that she'd even have, that we had in part of Lee's collection.
Wow.
So
What, now,
it's
sorry, it hasn't sold. Is there a price that she's asking that it's steering
it was
people
like
away?
only $2,000.
Really?
I mean, yeah. If I could fit in it, I'd probably buy it, but I don't have room for one. But and I was trying not to buy ones that are models that we don't have all the parts for or the body for. But if it's still there next time I go through Atlanta, I may change my mind. I don't know. We'll see.
So you were talking about Ford was working getting the Thunderbirds out there. I'm just trying to get a kind of a mind's eye on the different kind of cars that are out there. So let's say in the mid 50s, you had the T-Birds, you had, well, there was the Pontiac one. I remember that, the 56 Pontiac. That seemed to be the only one Pontiac got involved with. I don't seem to remember a 55 or a 57. Or do you guys?
1956 was the only year made by Sylvester Art Studios out of Chicago. There was a company out of North Kansas City, Kansas, that made the 58 Edsel. They also made a 57 and 58 Sunliner that were either gas powered or electric powered. The Edsels, of course, are extremely rare and very desirable if you can ever find one for sale. We mentioned already the Jaguar Juniors that were made out of Seattle.
Did you say something about a 58 Mercury or something like that earlier?
58 Mercury, 57 and 58 Mercury were made by the Power Car Company in Mystic, Connecticut. Jim's dad's company where he worked, and they actually even had a heterodyne radio available for those. Was one of the options that was available for a junior car.
I actually have a 58 Big M, and it had the radio and it had the spot on the fender where the antenna was. And that particular car, stop me if anybody else wants to speak, but I can tell you a little story about the Big M if you want to hear it.
Go ahead.
Please.
Yeah.
We lived in Groton and still live in Groton, which is about 15 minutes from Mystic, from where the original plant is. And a fellow used to come and mow our lawn. And one time I had the garage door open and he saw one of the power cars in there and he said, "My grandfather has one of those." I said, "Really? Where is it?" He says, "Down in Mystic. He has it in his barn." So he took me down to see it. It was a 58 Mercury, Big M. And they're extremely rare, as you guys said. So I made him an offer to buy it, but he wasn't interested at the time. But he called me back a while back, and a while later, and he said, "I'll sell it to you for $500." So I bought it, and he told me the story that I said, "How did your grandfather get it?" He said, "Well, he knew somebody that worked at the plant, and he traded him a shotgun and an outboard motor for it. Came out the back door." So it was hot material already, but it had been painted, spray painted poorly, bright red. So I took it and started a restoration on it myself. And I have a good friend who paints cars for me, and he's really great at it. But he does real cars mostly. And I was working on it. And you guys know Wayne Carini, Chasing Classic Cars?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I met Wayne one time when he was giving a speech, and I showed him a picture that I had with me. And I said, "Are you familiar with these?" And he said, "No." So we got into a conversation, had a great talk about it. And he called me up out of the blue one day, and he said, "Concord the Elegance in Greenwich, we're doing a special on children's cars." And he said, "I want you to bring one of yours." And I said, "Well, I got a lot of stuff in the middle of restoration." He said, "Well, finish one because you're in. It's invite only, and you're in." Oh, boy. Okay. So I got the body done and painted the frame. I kept everything as original as possible, but the body we had to redo. and we did it in 3 tones of color, 2 shades of blue and white, which were original Big M colors. We got the thing down to the show. There was, I guess, maybe 25 junior cars there, including a Ferrari that was valued at $100,000. So we were on display there, and the people came by and asked me all about it. And I told them the story about the Power Car Company and my dad and all. And come to find out, in the end, we actually won. They came by and handed us the blue ribbon and said, "You're going to be up for the trophy." We got the same trophy that you got if you had a Ferrari or anything else there. And that was 2017. So that Big M became quite popular. We got invited to several different functions with it, although we're very busy on other things here. And it hasn't been out of the garage since it won that particular deal. But that was a lot of fun, a big surprise. And that was kind of a Big M that started a really strange story. Found it, like I said, about 2 or 3 miles from the original plant down in Mystic.
Brian's got the picture of a Big M right behind him. Tell us, is that I would assume is not it, but what's the story of that?
So this is one I just picked up in August down in Oklahoma. That's steering wheel needs to be replaced, but it's a 58 Big M gas, all original, everything's there. And so one of the first ones that my son thought was cool, because dad has all the Mustangs, he doesn't like those as much. And so we're hoping to have this one at the local car shows this summer. We're gonna put the new steering wheel on it, and then probably leave windshield off just because they get broke easily, and just let him take it around and put around the car shows in it. And I think it's gonna draw all the attention away from everything else. Extremely rare. I paid a little more than 500 for this one. A lot more than 500 for that one. But is one of those, I hadn't seen a Big M come up for sale. And so when this one did, and the lady had a small collection, and it was just a couple hours drive from me, I decided I need to go pick them all up. So
other cars in the 60s, then there were some 60 Thunderbirds, or 61 through 63.
1955 through 1966, they produced Thunderbird Juniors. Now, there were quarter scales that were available in 58, 59, and 60 that were only electric powered, but gas powered in the Thunderbird Junior started in 57. They were electric powered in 55, 56. The majority of the production of Thunderbird Juniors happened in the first 3 years. When they were first introduced, they were selling like hotcakes. They were kicking butt all around the place. So once you get past 1957, finding the original ones has become more and more difficult. And, you can't fill the demand that's out there. These things show up in the darndest places. The Mercury Junior a few years back found a 57 showed up at a dealership. They were clearing out an upstairs loft area, and it was buried under a bunch of junk. They had got it in back in 57, used it for promotions around the dealership, put it up, and forgot about it. Didn't know it was there. The best original DeSoto Firemite I've ever seen turned up in the basement of a house underneath a ping pong table. Who knows where these things are going to show up? They just show up, and you can't predict it. And if you get, like I said, you ever get an opportunity, you buy it. Don't pass it up. So many times in the past, I've written articles for various magazines to try to get the word out about these things, and I get the inevitable call from somebody who's got deep pockets. Says, "I want a 67 Mustang Junior. Where can I get one?" Good luck. Wait in line with everybody else. I mean, Brian's got the advantage now that he has a company. He's getting more opportunities too. Now, Aaron, he gets his opportunities because he takes his cars out to the shows. You take them out to the shows, you get people to come up to you and say, "Hey, we got something like that back at home.
Let's go."
One of the things one of the things I'm curious about, we all go to car shows. Well, not we all, but like Aaron, Randy, and myself, we go to car shows in general. Is there a car show being organized for these types of vehicles?
We are working on trying to get one for this summer. One of the followers who's got some extremely nice Thunderbird Juniors took it up there, and it's the Motor Muster up at the Henry Ford Museum in Detroit area, Dearborn. So he took his up there last year and had his grandkids drive around. They loved him. They talked to him about trying to organize a show. So we're trying to get that organized now. And the goal is to try to get one of all the juniors, the Power Car Juniors made there. That what another reason why I bought the Mercury, and because you don't see many of those. So we're trying to get one organized where we're getting people to come in, specifically to showcase the juniors. Because one thing there, that's a car show for really serious collectors and car followers. And it's just everybody came up to us like, didn't know they existed, hadn't seen them. And he even had Ford execs come up there that didn't even know they existed.
They got no clue.
So it's people are surprised by them. I know when I've trailered mine back, every stop at a gas station, people are coming up and asking what is that? So
back when I ran Junior Central, there was a guy that had a King of the Road. What year did they manufacture the KR convertibles?
Late 60s, what, 68,
68, I think.
Yeah, he had a King of the Road convertible, which was one of the rarest Shelby Mustangs, out there. And he had a junior car, picked it up also. He says, side by side, no question about it. The junior gets more attention than the King of the Road.
Oh, I bet.
All the time.
It appeals to everybody. Go ahead, Garen.
The nice thing about taking these to a show is that everybody smiles and everybody has an appreciation for it. A lot of it is, I wish I had one of those, that sort of thing, which is great. And I've always had, when my kids were younger and they could fit two people in a car, they would take other kids around for rides and things like that. And that was really kind of fun, because the idea is, too many of these shows, the kids are getting yelled at, stay away from the car, don't touch my car, get your kid away from my car. And with these, people approach, they want to follow, they have a lot of questions. We have the answers, of course, but it's really fun to just kind of share this really odd bit of automobilia with people who think they know everything about cars and don't, which is kind of fun. And it's not about throwing it in their face, it's just about saying, look, there's a lot out there and there's a lot that isn't really known. The picture of the car behind me, I took that picture at the Palos Verdes Concord Elegance. We were invited because there was a Virgil Exner exhibit, and so we took the junior, and we were parked across from Cords and Duesenbergs and all these beautiful classic cars, and the crowd was around this thing. So it's just a lot of fun, and the stories behind them, everything you hear is, well, I found it here in this basement under a table. The one behind me, it came from the original family. And the story was that it was purchased originally by a country club in Rhode Island. And the winner and it was the big Christmas party raffle prize. This was like the grand prize. And so it was won by a doctor, and he had a huge estate. So they had this long driveway, and all the kids over the generations used the car. When I got it, it had bald tires, so it was definitely enjoyed. But it was beat. They had driven it into walls and fences and all kinds of stuff. And so it moved from garage to garage to garage after the big estate had been sold. And it was thrown out on a trash pile in front of one of the people's houses, because they do take up significant garage space. Yeah. And so another relative was driving through the neighborhood, because all the relatives lived pretty close to each other. And he was driving and he saw it, and he grabbed it, threw it in his truck, and put it in he owned a bunch of self-storage places. And he put it in there for a decade. And then he was cleaning out the self-storage place and contacted Lee, and I contacted Lee the day before, and the two of us, got together. We made a deal, and he had a crate built and shipped it to me. And shipping was not cheap, and the junior wasn't cheap, but the story of getting all of the people to put it together. A lot of friends of mine worked at a local major automotive design office in Southern California, and they had a paint booth and a fiberglass section, and they basically took the body. I did all the body work and finishing on it, and they painted it for me in their professional booth with their auto show clear coat, which is, you might as well coat it with, glass. I mean, the thing is just perfect. And it's as good today as it was the day it was painted. And that's,
and the people working on them like doing it because it's an unusual project.
Yeah, and we all did it for my son's. I bought it for him for his second birthday, put a battery in it, he was driving it around. And then for his third birthday, this new group of friends got together and restored it for him. So that was the gift. And the gift wasn't just the car for him, for my son. It was the gift of meeting all of these new friends and having these great experiences and adding to the story. And even the 58 that I have, it's all original. It's never been painted. It's scratched up and scraped up, but it's completely original. And the original owner was a pastor's son who won it in a raffle at a Dodge or DeSoto Plymouth dealership at the end of the model year, because the 59s are coming in now. The 58's an old car. And so he won it. He took it home. He used it as a kid. And then as he grew up, he took it from garage to garage to garage. And because he became a traveling pastor, and he went from place to place to place. And he always took the Junior with him. And then he got to the point where, he was getting old and he didn't really have any use for it. So he gave it to his neighbor's son. And so the neighbor's son posted on the website asking, because his son was like 6 feet tall, what kind of battery should you use? And I suggested an Optima because the 6 volts are kind of small and there would be more leg room in there. The battery on the electric cars is up behind the grill. So we stayed in touch, and I said, look, if you ever want to sell it, I'd be more than happy to pay a fair price. And I wanted to finish the collection, because by that time I had the 59 and the 60. And out of the blue, I was actually I was cleaning out my contacts or something on my phone one day, and I saw his number, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this guy a call. And I called him and said, you know what, my son just turned 16. He's got a 51 Ford F100 pickup that he's restoring. He could really use the money. I said, so it's mine? And he said yes, and we flew there and rented a minivan, my wife and I, and we drove the thing home in 4 days. Wow. And it was just the greatest trip, because the guy, he was so nice. Everybody came out a winner. The story, continued to the next generation of ownership. And we have just great memories. And it's the 58 is the one that we drive the most, because they drive it. Because you can't hurt it. I mean, the thing is, the fiberglass on these things, Lee will tell you, it's pretty thick. And Brian, I mean, these things, they're heavier than you think they might be, especially when you put a full-size 6-volt battery inside them. And then, of course, Bob, you have the Firemite behind you. That one, I have one of those. It was Lee's old car, and he was nice enough to choose me as the next guy in line. And I've been working on it. The chassis is completely restored. It runs and drives beautifully. The body, it came with 2 bodies. Lee, do you want to talk about that one a little bit?
The original one was made with a vacuum formed polystyrene. And of course, that being one of the new products back then. And of course, the one behind you, I can tell just looking at it, it's one of the polystyrene bodies. The problem is they went out in November. The introduction of the new model series, October, November, in that area, they're running down the sidewalks in cold weather. And what happens to the polystyrene body? They start falling apart. So complaints start coming in. So then they made a fiberglass body. Fiberglass body is not as detailed as the polystyrene body. So he's got both of those now. Polystyrene needs some help. The DeSoto was also very highly detailed. One of the things I wanted to say about Power Car Company is not only are they extremely highly detailed, what impresses the hell out of people is when you get in, you hit the brake pedal on the gas powered ones, the brake lights come on. You turn on the headlights, the taillights come on. I mean, you hit the horn in the middle of the steering wheel. That's where the horn is located at.
Mhm.
It just is very impressive for people to see that come along and they step on the brakes and the brake lights come on. It just amazes people because pedal cars don't have any near that. A lot of the pedal guard detail comes from decals, and the decals just don't do it like the detail that you get on the power car products.
When I first got into this, and I was talking to Lee, I think for the very first time, he said, you have to understand the quality of what these cars are. And he said that, and the way he described it, he said, when a pedal car was $12, these were 500. So, so the difference in the quality and the production techniques and the just all of it, they're upholstered. There's a little bit of give in the cushion of the seats. The tires had white walls, and and they were molded in. The reproductions, the tires on mine, the wheels, they're just decals, and they like to peel off all the time. So that's something I want to work on. But the quality was there, and these were not just throwaway toys. These were expensive promotional vehicles, and there's no wonder they last so long and last forever, because there's perfect example behind Brian. That's one of the chassis. And what's cool about these is that they were nice because they had a solid floor and they had side panels that curved up to the body, so you could drive these things and not get dirty. And unlike the Firemite you're just covered in dust. But the power cars were really outstanding as far as from an engineering standpoint.
We've said before these things weren't really meant for speed, but that doesn't mean people haven't done it. The worst I've seen is a guy that works in the frame shop at NASCAR down in South Carolina, and he rigged up a Thunderbird Junior with a 38 horsepower Briggs animal motor. And the problem is he keeps breaking the shafts on them, and he does wheelies every time he goes. So
well, that's
people will do it.
That's also similar to the electrics that I built. We built with the help of Lee and his parts and reproduction bodies. We built 2 cars for Pee-wee's Big Holiday, the movie, and so it was a 58. They
did it up with the 59 trim. Yep.
58 with a 59 trim on it, and it was Thunderbird. And the request from the production was they wanted the cars to do between 35 and 40 miles an hour. And with the way the steering was, it's so fast that you can't. I mean, you move it a quarter of an inch, 1 degree, and the thing is just out of control. So I found a company up in Northern California that builds go-kart setups, go-kart motors. And it had, even with they gave it to me, they set it up with a half speed switch. So even with the half speed, it was a 48 volt system, built-in charger, and the slightly modified reproduction frame. That thing would do burnouts. I still have the burnout marks in my garage.
They made Kaiser Darren Juniors. They made there was a Studebaker Lark Junior. Some junior Jeeps out there. There was a lot of different manufacturers made them. A lot of them are extremely rare. You just don't see them out there. But then, of course, people made their own type versions.
In '65 at the New York World's Fair, what was it? Avis Rent-A-Car ran a whole fleet of 65 Plymouth Furies Juniors.
Gas powered.
And it's the only one I don't have. It's the only one I want.
They were made by the same company that made the Plymouth Superbirds and Dodge Daytonas. It was an aftermarket shop for Chrysler Corporation. They made them for them, and there was a limited production run of them made just for the Avis show at the World's Fair. Yep.
Yeah, it's the only Fury I need to complete the collection. So, and it's always nice to have that one thing hanging out there that, it keeps me excited. It keeps me looking. And one of these days I'll find it.
This has been so much fun, and I appreciate you guys joining us and taking the time to tell your stories about this, because I know Bob feels the same in a sense that we've seen these things up front, up close, but I don't think we've ever, I personally didn't realize there were so many of them. Yeah, Aaron in California, Lee's in Iowa, Brian's in Missouri, Jim, where are you at?
In Connecticut.
Connecticut. We're all over the country, my friends.
Coast to coast.
What's that?
We're coast to coast.
We are coast to coast tonight. That's great. And I, of course, am in our location. Bob's in California. I'm in our location. Our studio's in Washington State. Don't forget, we're having fun talking about cars. So we'll see you next time for our next episode. Please join us. That'll do it. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.